broadcasting, and I'll go ahead and share the link. We can kind of do a little bit of a countdown, and then once you do a countdown, I'll click record in Audacity. Unless you want me to just start recording on Audacity simultaneously.
Well, right now we're broadcasting already, so here we go.
Okay. All right, fair enough. We'll do that later. All right, so I am in YouTube, and I'm just gonna search for. Let's see here. Live now, and here is your link.
Okay. And
it's in the Google Hangout.
All right, so where do I find that link? It's right there. So I got to copy this link and paste it into Twitter.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be doing that same thing right now as well.
So let's go back to here. And then we're going to try to go to Twitter. This is all new for me. Very, Grandpa's trying something new. All right.
Yeah.
The long view, that's me. All right. I started a live stream on YouTube. Apparently, it's already posted. Interesting.
Yeah, yours auto-posted when you did that. Probably because you checked it. There is that little box you can check. Yeah, for public, and then underneath that, you probably checked the box for Twitter.
Okay, cool. All right. So I guess it's already there.
All right.
Lovely, lovely.
And mine is now posted as well.
So we are in like Flint. All right. So here we go. Well, I guess we'll start the show. Here we go.
Yeah, you want to count down?
Yeah, sure. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to a well, it might help if I had the microphone in my hand. Let's try that.
Yeah, that'll help out.
Here we go. Now, why can't I see the chat window? Where's the chat window? How's that come up?
The chat window, actually, you need to go to the live stream of it. I don't know if there's a way for us to do it with the actual, like, the Hangout. Mm-hmm. I think that you've got to go to our link as well. The one that you posted in Twitter, you gotta click on that. Or just click on the one that's in our Hangout.
The one that's in our Hangout. Okay.
Yeah, the one here on the side.
So I'm looking. Where's the one on the side?
The one that I like, just the one in our chat in the Hangout. You know, the one that you posted, the link you just posted to Twitter?
Yes, that just kind of popped up all of a sudden. But I don't know how you type that in there. Aha, wait, what's this? That's the screen share, camera, control room. Is it in control room?
No,
there it is. There's chat. Haha, I found chat.
It is in the control room?
Look at that. Yeah, no, it's not. It's above. It's 3 icons above control room on the left-hand side. You'll see a little like speech bubble, and you can click on that. And now I can come down here and say, hi, exclamation point, because I'm very excited about it. Look at that.
Is that in our group chat, or is that? I don't think that's going to the live
group chat. No, it says group chat right up top, dude.
Is it? I'm on the link. Like, I clicked on that link and I'm not seeing. Let me go ahead and refresh it. I'm not seeing anything here in the live chat on actual YouTube.
I'm a little leery of clicking on that link and taking me away from where I am.
Just right click and then open link in new tab.
Oh my gosh! Hold on. You're killing me.
Yeah, I'm going to go turn off the dehumidifier. I'm in my basement.
New tab. Okay. So there it is. So this is it here. Oh, wow. There's all kinds of delay.
All right. Back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a discussion of my father's bowel movements.
What are you doing? No.
Okay. I didn't think you were here.
No. The problem is, see, I'm getting this delay. Yeah. I'm getting a hit.
Are you getting a delay from my speech, or are you just?
Yeah. You and me. I'm hearing it twice.
Okay, that's because you need to mute. You need to mute that YouTube. Mute that. because it's gonna be behind us. But the thing is, like, I'll go ahead and I'll say something here, and you see that.
I see. Hey, Jeff, where is the mute that you're talking about?
Just on the YouTube video, if you scroll over the video,
Uh-huh.
next to pause, just click the button that looks like a megaphone.
So can you still hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that is, you are just watching it on YouTube. You are just currently watching a YouTube video that is our stream. It's our live event, and it's just about 10 seconds for it to actually broadcast. So anyway, though, you should be able to, if we get any chat or anything like that, we'll be able to respond to it here. I mean, it might just sit there. So, but it says that there's 2 watching it now. That would make me and you.
Look, I'm the king. I'm the king. It's good to be the king. Look in that live chat. See, look, there's a little crown there.
Yes, you are the king of it. Hello,
that's
everyone.
Good stuff.
Hi. I'm everyone.
All right, so here we go. Let's start this again. All right, ready?
You want me to? Are we going to do a countdown again?
Yeah, we're going to do a countdown.
Okay.
But I think I understand what's going on. All right.
Sure, sounds good.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to a special edition of The Long View. This is kind of a joint venture with The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly and The Long View podcasts, joining forces together to discuss our experiences at the Origins Game Fair this year in Columbus, Ohio. So Joe and I and some other friends were able to get together and go to this event. This was my first time at Origins. Joe had been there before, I believe. And so it was a chance for us to kind of get together and meet for the first time. Friends of the show, The Long View, will recognize Joe from being on many episodes, such as Hands of Teutonica and Concordia and other episodes like Trois. And Joe has his podcast along with his brothers in arms, which would include Trent Ham and Andrew Dennison and Jonathan. This is The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. So Joe basically roped me into doing this as a live event. So right now we are unjoined by any other human beings. It is Joe and I who are watching ourselves in a sort of a weird narcissistic way doing this live Origins recap. But this feed will be downloaded and posted to The Long View and quite possibly The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly as well for people who prefer to listen to the audio podcast. So first of all, I want to say, Joe, thanks for guiding me through some of this new tech stuff. Grandpa's learned some new tricks, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's okay, Jeff. You know, it was the Grandpa learned new tricks all of Origins. It was great to meet you for the first time, and tonight these tech things have gotten so easy that anymore it's just like, you know, you just got to remember what button you clicked. And I keep all these tabs open on my computer because I kind of have a hard time getting back to wherever it was I started. But anyway, it was an absolute blast to get to spend some quality time with some really good, just really great gamers, some really good friends. And, you know, I would say that Origins in a lot of ways is just a time to be able to play a lot of different games. And it's not really quite where all the hotness comes out or anything like that. It's just a time to be able to do what we did, which was play lots of games. And I think that's what we plan on talking about.
Absolutely. And I would agree 100%. It was a lot of fun, and it was a game fair that I was kind of surprised by a little bit because it reminded me of Board Game Geek Con in many ways, because this was more of a kind of like a playing convention than a buying convention, which had been kind of my experience at Gen Con. Gen Con, there's like a lot more hoopla, there's more new releases, there's a lot more people there. And, you know, even walking through the dealer hall can be somewhat challenging. Whereas Origins is much more kind of wide open, kind of has more of a relaxed feel, and lots of people just kind of there to play games. So in many ways, it reminded me a little bit of BGG Con, and it reminded me a little bit of the WBC, which are conventions that are primarily for playing games. And so it was a lot of fun to get a chance to kind of check this off my list of great conventions that I have never been to. And I was very grateful to Joel Eddy for kind of extending an invitation and saying, hey, you know, I'm going to Origins, you know, would you like to come along? So I kind of roomed with him and Eric Tao from the Push Your Luck podcast. Always a pleasure to hang out with those two gentlemen. And so it was just an opportunity I kind of couldn't pass up. School ended early this year, and I was able to go. So I was like super excited to give it a try. I was a little bit worried about the drive. It's kind of a long drive for me, but then fortunately for me, my buddy Jason, who is a archaeologist, he kind of was off work for a week while they were waiting for some paperwork to get sorted out from a survey that he was doing. So I was like, hey, why don't you come? So he was willing to come last second. He ended up bunking with you guys. Yep. And so it was just a really kind of a fortuitous set of events that kind of rolled together. And I got a chance to meet you and your brother, Will. So it was just a really a fun time, and it was a blast getting to meet a lot of people. Got to meet Joel's friend, Zach, who was a super nice guy, a lot of fun to play games with. And just, you know, it was just kind of getting to reconnect with some people like Isaac Shavlev from the Kind Fortress podcast, and seeing some of the guys from Rolling Dice and Taking Names, and the Secret Cabal, and it was just a lot of fun. So I was very grateful to have the chance to go. Atmosphere-wise, it was a super relaxing, I would say, for the most part, and a whole lot of fun. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of mention as we get going here, Joe, is that you really are much more the keeper of records than I am.
Okay.
I didn't.
I got them right here.
Yeah. I didn't always write down everything that we did. So I'm going to kind of let you sort of guide us through once I kind of get through the first arrival, because we actually arrived much earlier than you, partly because I kind of didn't get a right estimate of the time it was going to take. And then you had a little adventure with your car, which put you in much later. So
I can't believe we made it in there. It was rough, but it was not nearly as bad as it could have been. When you start hearing a high-pitched squealing coming from your engine when you're still 2.5 hours away from your ultimately 8.5 hour destination, it was a bit spooky. And Jeff here you were instrumental in getting me and my brother there, and not only that, but once we did finally get in, you helped haul us around once we were there for the next couple of days while we were waiting for our car to get done at the dealership. So I really appreciate all your accommodating and mulling me and Will and Jason around, and it ended up all kind of working out, even though it was at times it didn't look like it was going to.
Yeah, I was really happy that panned out, especially because what went wrong with your car was covered under warranty, which was, awesome. So
yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah,
unfortunately, I just paid.
What was that?
A big bill. I just paid a big bill today for our other car, which is an old beater truck, and not always the case. But you know what? This one, I'm fine paying it. I just didn't want to be stuck there in the middle of the convention with all of my liquid funds gone. So.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, you're like, hey, honey, I'm going to Origins Game Fair, and I'm gonna spend all this time away, and I'm gonna spend some money, and oh, by the way, the car broke down, and here's another bill for $800. That doesn't always go over well. So, anywho, we arrived. Jason and I arrived on Wednesday afternoon around 1:00. We kind of got settled in a little bit, and then went to scope out the scene. The dealer hall was not yet open, but there's this whole huge main kind of convention hall where the boardroom is, and there were a lot of publishers that kind of had booths and stuff like Cool Mini or Not and Mayfair and Eagle Griffin, etc., that had kind of booths set up running demos. And so you were able to kind of go and peruse and kind of check out what some of the offerings were going to be, and maybe even sit down and get in a game. So that was really cool. I also have to say that when we arrived there, Jason didn't have a badge because he kind of came last minute. And I got to tell you, the Origins people really did a fantastic job of organizing it so that it was really painless and quick for Jason to go get his badge. He didn't have to wait very long. It was just absolutely fantastic. So, kudos to them with their team and how they organize things. So, we got in and sat down and kind of got ourselves sort of oriented and got a little bite to eat. And then we heard that you were possibly being stranded. So, yeah, that was a little bit on the scary side there. But fortunately, you guys did end up making it in. Up until that point, Jason and I just kind of tried to kind of go and check out the CABS library, which was really, really impressive. There was a ton of games there. And one of the things I thought was really cool, if you go to Origins, is they have an app. You kind of scan a QR code, and it gives you a link to a document that is basically the entire catalog that they have available there through CABS. And so for Jason and I, we were able to kind of look and kind of go through and say, hey, there's some games here that we can definitely check out. And so the first one that we checked out was a game called The Order of the Gilded Compass, which is a game that is a remake of the Alea Iacta Est, I think is what it's called. And so this is basically a dice game where you're going to be sort of rolling dice and then assigning dice to various areas, and you need certain kind of patterns and different sort of setups and whatnot in order to activate those areas. And so what they did was they kind of took it away from the Roman theme and turned it more towards a sort of explorers club kind of thing, like a turn of the century. We're going to go and run these expeditions and seek treasure and, go and do all these digs in these exotic locations and see what we can find. And so it really was a very interesting twist on the original game, and it added some things and some mechanics that I think were definite improvements. So I was really surprised. Like, we really enjoyed it. It's got a little set collection aspect to it. It's got a little bit of that dice rolling where you roll a dice and you must kind of set aside at least one. But it also had like a really interesting mechanic where as soon as one person was out of dice, then the other person, if they were later in turn order, only had one turn. So you couldn't like hoard your dice. You couldn't like just put your dice out in little dribs and drabs, because if somebody else splashed a big set of dice in order to, maybe gain a benefit in the game, then you might end up being stuck without having used all of the dice that you had the potential to use. So I thought that was really kind of cool too. Have you ever played that one?
I played Alea Iacta Est. I've never played Order of the Gilded Compass. So what did they make the latrine? Because you used to be able to like flush your dice, sort of. Did they?
Yeah, they kind of had it. I think they call it like the library, I think they call it now. And that's where like you just kind of put your dice that you either can't use or don't have a use for, and you get basically a reroll chip at the end of the round that you can then use later. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's the same idea as what the latrine used to be, like kind of a place to get rid of this stuff, to get rid of whatever you had left over.
Exactly. So yeah, that was kind of the first game that we played. And then that sort of took us to dinner time, and then you guys kind of showed up, real fortunately. And so did a little.
You don't have to lie, Jeff. It's okay.
And then we got to kind of run around a little bit and got you guys kind of settled and sort of picked up, and really kind of started thinking about hitting the ground running that night with some games. So. What do you have down as kind of the first thing we did that night when you guys got to the hall?
All right. Well, I can here. We'll do it by date. So the thing is, when I log games, I don't always put them all in the order that we play them. I usually just kind of put them all in at once at the end of the night. So, and there was one that I forgot to put in until like a week after the convention. I'll let you guess which one that is. Anyway, so what I've got down here, I believe the first night, the first game that we got a chance to play together was Automobile by Martin Wallace.
Yep. Yeah, that was a really cool game. It was one that you had requested, and I hadn't played in ages. So this is a older Martin Wallace title about sort of the early days of the automotive industry. You are manufacturing cars and trying to develop a sales force and trying to deal with the demands of the market, and also kind of dealing with antiquation, right, of different models. People always want the latest, greatest, etc. So it's got a little bit of that kind of a feel to it. So, this is a game that I've had in my collection for ages, and I've played it many, many times. I'm more curious to hear about you. What did you hear, about this, and what did you think about it once you had a chance to play?
Automobile to me was, I mean, I'm really fascinated with Martin Wallace's designs. It seemed like he'd still come out with some really good ones now, but I'm discovering a whole world of incredibly nuanced, rich designs that are able to evoke a specific time period while also not having to sacrifice a sturdy and interesting theme. Like, for example, here we've got like when cars first became a household item in the United States, and I came at it from like I was very interested in just the whole story of Detroit. I came at it from more like I was interested in Detroit from the like. It's almost like there's a lot of things out there that are called ruin porn, where they have just like pictures of old buildings. It's not, it's family friendly. It's just pictures of old, like burned out buildings. And so one of them is like the Packard plant. And there's a lot of other car plants that are there in Detroit. And just this time period fascinated me. And the way that the game is structured is it has like these really interesting ways of penalizing you in a way that feels like these automotive manufacturers were penalized back in the day. Like there are different stages of cars. You get penalized at the end of every round if you have an obsolete type of car. So the worse you get penalized is how old your car is. So if there's currently 5 factories making mid-sized cars, whoever has the newest factory, because you're advancing around on this track, it's like a linear track on the outside of the game board. But whoever has the newest factory, which will be the furthest down the track, gets no penalty. Whoever has the second newest is going to take 1 cube of like these penalty cubes, and so on and so forth. So if there's 5 people, then the person who's in 5th place really wants to shut down that factory because you're taking 4 negative cubes, and those 4 negative cubes, there are ways for you to get around like getting rid of those, but you're going to have to pay a fee every single round. It is, in my opinion, that's one of the things that really interests me about the game. Also, the linear track of how the cars are developed, the way that people can sort of like hop up and try to get a newer model of a car available. Those are what's going to sell fastest. The way that the market is abstracted, everybody has like 1/4 of the information of how many total cars are going to be available. You've got your role selection. You've got the role section is themed around like Henry Ford, Howard. I forget his name. He was like the best salesman who at one point sold like 1 in every 8 cars in the state of California. I mean, this to me just breathes life into this particular time period. And the way that it's done is something that I think I could really get behind in terms of it has like obsolescence, which is something that I'm at odds with in the 18XX genre, but here it's like you're never going to be forced to close that factory. You're just going to be like, man, this factory is ruining my entire score. I have to close this factory. I don't know, Jeff, if it's come through, but I really, really liked Automobile. Like legit, I'm going to show this to my home group. I think it's going to really go over well with the guys I play with Andy and also with Trent. I really think it's going to be a big hit for us. And Nate also sometimes joins us on our podcast. I really appreciate you accommodating my request here with our first game that we got to play together.
Not a problem. I mean, Martin Wallace is one of my favorite designers, and yeah, I mean, it's. I'll be surprised if Trent hasn't played it yet, because Trent, I think, has played every game ever made.
I'm sure he did, but it's probably been like I bet it's been way longer than it was for you.
Yeah, but yeah, it's always always a lot of fun to show off like some of these older games, which is kind of the Longview mission when you think about it. And yeah, I mean, it's a title that definitely holds up, and it's one that it poses a unique set of challenges and feels different with different numbers of players. And you know, that sort of variable market, the randomness of it, is one of those things that really kind of builds a lot of tension, because it's not a perfect information game. And because of that, I know some people haven't been as, you know, fond of it, but to me, it's highly thematic. I mean, you never know exactly what people are going to want. You never know exactly what's going to be popular. You don't know what's going to sell, you know, all that kind of stuff. So to me, that just ties directly to the theme, and was just a real pleasure to kind of get a chance to play again and kind of bring myself back to one of those older designs of Martin Wallace. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So
It was good stuff.
So what was up next after that? We do anything else that night?
Yeah, I believe, or did we? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe we didn't. Oh, yeah. After that, we just wanted to play something kind of simple and light.
Mm-hmm.
And we played a small card game that you had very fond memories of.
Small card game I had very fond memories of. Isn't it sad that I don't remember it?
Pirates.
What was that?
You're playing as like pirates trying to get down a tunnel.
Oh yeah, Cartagena. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, Cartagena. Yeah. That was old Leo Calvoni game, I believe. It's recently received a reprint, so it's going to be available again, which is really cool. This is a real simple game. It kind of harkens back to a simpler time. Now, just kind of a simpler era in board gaming. I mean, when I think about today, I played Lisboa for the first time. This was like my big purchase at Origins.
Oh, dude, I was wanting to talk about this.
Oh my God, that game. I mean, it's really, I really enjoyed my first play, which is a good sign, because a lot of times with Vital's games, I don't always enjoy my first play because there's just so much going on, and I'm so confused, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, and I'm not sure how these things, how these things interconnect. But this one, by the end of the game, I kind of knew what was going on and could see a lot of different paths and a lot of different things. So anyway, the reason I bring that up is because that's much more of a modern board game design, which is that sort of everything in the kitchen sink kind of thing. You know, complex systems working together, intertwined. That takes a little bit of, it's got a learning curve to it. Whereas older kind of Euro games, when you think of, you know, sort of the first wave, if you want to think of them, were much more straightforward. And so Cartagena is one of these games where it's like you either play a card and advance one of your pieces to a matching symbol, or you go backwards with one of your pieces to join other pieces that are on the board and draw cards. So you're either playing cards or drawing cards, and you're just trying to get all your people onto the boat and escape, and whoever does that first wins. And so it's incredibly simple, but there are some choices to be made, and you kind of wait for your opportunities with your hand of card. There's definitely some hand management aspects to it. You know, I had a hand of cards that portrayed a little captain's hat. And so I'm sitting there, and I waited a while until other captain's hats got covered, because basically when you play a card, you're going to jump forward to the first available icon that matches the card that you've played. And so what ends up happening is, if you can wait, if you can kind of manage your hand until all of the sort of captain hats have been covered, you can actually jump from the very beginning of this sort of tunnel complex that you're trying to get through, escaping, to, you know, you can jump almost to the complete end of the board, or you might even be able to jump right onto the boat. So there's a kind of a fun little hand management aspect to it. It's nothing deep. It's nothing highly strategic, but for what it is and what it intended to do, I've always enjoyed it. And so I was really glad to get a chance to play that again. So, and that was one that I kind of taught to you guys, because none of you had played that before. Yes?
Correct.
So what were your thoughts?
I don't know, with Cartagena, I thought it was a little bit more one-dimensional than I would have liked. I know that there is like a variant that you can play where everybody can see everybody else's cards, and I can only imagine that adding to like just sitting there and staring at other people's hands and kind of this game of chicken where it's like, do I play it, do I not? And I feel like it would just add a ton of time. I don't think I would really enjoy that aspect, like where you're really thinking about how many how many players can benefit from what you do and stuff. I think that it's best played the way that we played it, which it's a light game. I think that really quickly I figured out that if you're ever going to be moving backwards to get cards, you always have to consider that anytime you to one player and create two of your people on one spot, you're essentially setting up whoever's ahead of you to be able to get more cards. It's more efficient if they can come and block a spot where there's already two people on and step on there and get to draw two cards. So right. I was fine with it. It was okay. I just don't think I saw anything special in it. I didn't play it, 10 years ago, so I don't know really have frame of reference here with other games from that specific time. So, but yeah, that's my take on Cartagena.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, obviously, the best efficiency is to go back so that you can draw two cards instead of one, but that's that hand management part. I mean, that to me is part of the interesting aspects of the game is this idea of I have to either play a card or I gotta draw a card. Mm-hmm. And if I don't want to play these Captain Hats card because I'm waiting for others to kind of fill them up so that I can get the maximization there, then I might have to take a suboptimal kind of move by moving backwards and drawing a card in order to preserve this kind of little strategy that I've built for myself. So there's a little bit of tension there, which I enjoy. Also want to take a moment to give a shout out to Andrew Dennison, who has decided to pop in and join us. So hello to Andy. So hope that he's going to enjoy some of this discussion and maybe jump in and give his thoughts if he's played any of these games. That would be fun
just saying, too. Andy, you're going to love Automobile, I think.
I'd be curious if he's played it already. Have you played it yet, Andy? We'll wait for him to type in. There's a little bit of a lag there. I'll be curious if he's played it or not already. So, yeah, so we played Cartagena. Was that pretty much it, I think,
that was for the first night. So I went back to the Super 8 motel where we were staying at Super 8 Hotel. Yeah, Andy's not played. He has not yet played Automobile. We're gonna
he'll be in for a treat. Yeah, he'll be in for a treat.
So,
that'll be good.
Yeah, your friend Jason really loved. I mean, we all left 5-star reviews on the Super 8. It was $44 a night, and I think it summed up best by two stories. First of all, the guy that was dropping me off from the dealership after, when I left my car there, he said, "There's a Waffle House right there in front of the Super 8. You don't want to be around there late at night." That was one story, and the other one.
What he said was, "Don't go outside at night." That was what he said.
This is true. So the other thing was in the morning they actually had continental breakfast, which I was like, man, you're kidding me? $44 a night for 3 people is like continental breakfast is included. So we went downstairs and figured out what exactly they meant by continental breakfast, which is once again best summed up by a father trying to get his 5-year-old daughter impressed and excited to eat breakfast there. And it started with, well, we could have cereal, waffles,
toast.
Yeah, and these were like Eggo waffles that were just all in like a slide out tray. That was like it. That was all there was. There was like a few oranges that looked like I don't know if I really want to eat those. I suppose I've got a peel on them. And anyway.
And then to add insult to injury, I'm sending him pictures from my hotel where they have like omelets and bacon and
anyone goes
hash browns. It was the Hampton Inn. Yeah, the Hampton Inn was awesome. Yeah,
it's where to go. It is definitely where to go. Yeah, if you're going on the cheap, go to the Super 8.
Yeah, hey, I mean, your guys' bill was a lot less than mine, so and that was even with sharing a room. So there's something to be said for the cheap, but the Waffle House was a little scary.
Hey man, we ate there.
I know you did one day. So that was
daytime,
great.
Daytime though.
And then the other best part about it was when we're checking in, there's this like local guy, I'm assuming, who's kind of standing in line behind us, and he's like, where'd you guys come from? And Joe was just like, well, we just had to drop my car off, to get it fixed. We had some car trouble coming in, and he's like, where did you guys drop it off? And Joe's like, well, just at the dealer, like right down the road. And the guy just goes, literally, this is it. He's like, it was like he pulled a Lurch. I don't know if any of you are old enough out there to remember Lurch from the Addams Family.
I know, I get the reference. It was
it was like a moan. I was like, oh, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So they were kind of in hotel hell is what it sounded like. But it turned out to be okay, yeah?
It all worked out, and it was really nice, though, Jeff, that you were there and able to kind of house our games and whatnot for the convention. So if, all I needed to do was haul a couple of tubs up to your room, and you guys were awesome, and let those tubs stay there so we could go and get our stuff out of them.
Yeah, and while we're talking about that, I want to also just say that I don't think that's the way to go. And the reason I say that is because I brought a ton of games. Joe had requested some games, but I just brought some other games that I wanted to try to get played. And Joe brought a ton of games, some of which I asked for and never got a chance to play, like Anachrony. And so, we all brought all these games, when in actuality, most everything that we would have wanted to play was in the Cabs library.
That's true.
And it was like, boy, I could have just, like, Automobile was in the Cabs library. I didn't even have to bring my own copy, So they really did have a nice library, well organized of games. And so if you're thinking about going to Origins, one of the things you could consider is maybe leaving a lot of stuff at home, unless it's something rare or hard to find or an import or something. Chances are the Cabs library is going to have it. That's the Columbus Area Board Gaming Society or something. And they just, they're kind of the sponsoring group of Origins. And so it's really just a nice service that they offer. It's free. All you got to do is leave your license, which is a little scary. But they didn't lose my license, so... I'm used to WBC where you just sign it out with your badge number and they're like, bring it back. And you're like, okay. And everybody does. Cabs is like, we'll take your license. I'm like, huh? But I can't blame them, Mm-hmm. And, they had a good system and lots of people there. And I felt like everything was secure. So that was really kind of cool. So, yeah. So that was really kind of nifty. And I would say pack a little lighter than I did would be a piece of advice, right?
You definitely don't have to bring... For me, though, that's just kind of a game night. I'll bring a box full of maybe 10 games, and even if we do play my games at all, it's usually one or two at most that'll ever get played.
Right. So after this, especially while Andrew is still kind of listening to us, I think if we fast forward to the next day, one
PAX
of the things
Renaissance.
Yes, indeed, PAX Renaissance. That should get Andrew very excited, I'm hoping. So... I was able to rope you into playing PAX Renaissance, and to your credit, you said you wanted to try it out. You wanted to see what it was about. You're still trying to keep a open mind towards some of these Phil Eklund games, and so I was very happy to have the chance to teach it. Although there was kind of learning together. I mean, Phil Eklund games. I mean, you got to have the rule book handy. I played it a few times as a 2-player. Let me tell you, playing it as a 4-player game is very different. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of rules consultations and, a little bit just kind of trying to remember all of the different things you could do, Mm-hmm. And I know for me, sometimes I kind of felt like I was in a corner or I was like, well, man, I just lost... all of my concessions. There's a lot of options
at your disposal. Yeah. And he helped playtest the game, so you actually will find his name in the book.
Yeah, he had posted that. I did not know that he had helped playtest that, so that's fantastic.
I remember, he had the print and play, and there were some times, like, early versions of the game needed quite a bit of work. But I think, just Phil has got to be – maybe he's the most ambitious board game designer there is, because he is never willing to compromise. He throws everything and the kitchen sink into the game. So – you mind if I just give a little brief overview?
Go for it, yeah.
In PAX Ren, it's similar to PAX Pami or PAX Porfiriana. You're essentially buying cards, playing cards. You can activate your cards. Cards are all grouped into East and West cards. There's a map like Pax Pamir, and there's just probably 10, 12 actions you can take. Every time that you activate your cards, you're going to choose either your East side or your West side of your tableau. So your cards are built out like this, kind of, outwards. And then in Pamir, you actually can travel. It's really important to travel with your pieces around, and you still have to travel from card to card with some of the actions. And there's these cards called bishops that censor cards. So you're incorporating religion here, which is kind of a bit like the governments were in Pax Pamir, because your own, like, you do represent like your own like constituents, I guess. And so whenever you put out what do they call them? Contingencies, the things that go in between.
Those are concessions. Yeah,
concessions.
They're
okay.
basically like merchants. It's like who you're going to be. It's representing the trade routes and things that you are a part of, so that as trade and money is flowing, you're getting a benefit from that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the main things that are added to the board, so there's these concessions, but for the most part, almost all the cards seem to add like some of the religious pieces, of which you've got 3 different religions. You've got like Muslim, Christianity, and then your Eastern Orthodox, which may have also been Protestantism. I guess it was, but some of those cards predated the Reformation. So anyway, it was, to say the least, it was really a learning experience for me in 2 different senses, like learning the game and then learning the history, because it really does come along with it. It is, yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, Heavy Cardboard said it might be the heaviest game they've ever played, and it is just, there is that much stuff going on. Like, Jeff, you seem like you were totally wrecked just by the way this game, people will be building towards a certain victory and then hoping that when a comic card comes out, which are similar to the topple cards in Pamir, you're hoping that you can then buy that card, and then you will be able to choose the victory condition that activates. And then one of your actions in a later turn can be to actually win the game. And so here you've got people building up in lots of different ways, but you ended up being kind of behind and then being able to dig yourself out just by savvy card play and being able to see what's there. To me, what it did is it tightened up the economy of Porfiriana enough so that it still felt like the money was an important element of the game. Because in Porfiriana, a lot of times your money could just, you could just be swimming in money, it felt like. And the card row gets huge and the money gets higher up. Here and in Pamir, it's tight. It's not quite as tight as Pamir, I would say.
No, but Pamir is a stranglehold.
Yeah, you don't have any money. There's only like 12 total coins in the entire economy.
You're trying to get a buck before you pass out. You know what I mean? Somebody's got you in a sleeper hold, and you're like, I just need $1. Just $1. And you're like, you're out.
And here you run these trade routes, and the trade routes are quite interesting. Some cards can affect where things start and end, and then you'll pay every concession that's on that route. It's a really cool way of handling that specific, abstracting the merchant routes and how you're benefiting from them. It was just really cool. I liked that aspect of the game. I don't think there's nothing really in this game that rubbed me the wrong way. It's just a bear. It's a huge game. It's one that in one game I can't give you a full on, like say, yes, this is an awesome game, it's for me. I can just say that if you want that much depth, you are going to find it here. And I really think that it's delivering on the promise that its audience is looking for. If you already like Phil Eklund games, man, Phil has just delivered potentially his masterwork in PAX Renaissance. And there was an expansion that we didn't even play with.
No.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I would agree and echo those thoughts. So I'm not going to be redundant. It really is something that you just got to keep playing. It is amazing what he packs into that little box. Mm-hmm. He is, without a doubt. And, you also got to give a shout out to his son, Matt, because this is Phil and Matt Eklund. This is not just Phil.
Also Cole Worley. Without him, this game would not exist in its current form, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that there's definitely, you can see some Pax Pamir kind of footprints in this design as well. But it's one of those things where there's so much game packed into a box. When you think about Porfiriana, you think about this one, or Pax Pamir or Bios Genesis or something like that. There's just so much game in this tiny little box. Just a very complex little world. And I really, really enjoy exploring it because I'm always finding something new. You know, I'm always finding a different way to kind of manipulate things that I wasn't aware that I could even do, because it's almost like you have to ask the question that you have to ask a question and then seek the answer in the rule book and in the sort of mechanisms of the game to open up a new idea in your head, which might lead to a victory. Like for me, that was how to flip my kingdoms to republics. You know, early on in the game, for almost no reason, I just had happened to play 2 games that had law icons, you know, law prestige on them. And it was just like, wow, you know, if I can get some republics here, I might be able to pull this one out. And, you know, then taking a beating from the rest of the table, you in particular, Joe.
You were always the one that was just like
beating up on me fiercely.
You were set up
fiercely.
for it.
Oh, I was set up for the beating. So
it was
anyway.
like, well, I have a choice of either getting $1, paying $1 now, getting $1 back in a minute and hurting you, or just not paying the $1 and not hurting you. It's like, well, it sounds to me like it's, do I want to hurt Jeff or do I want to not hurt Jeff? And this is a competitive game, so.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I'm not gonna lie, I have no regrets about that game.
You have no
Except
regrets.
I do regret how bad I sucked at it. Oh man. Anyway, it's one of those I'm still wrapping my head around, but it was very, very cool. One that I would be definitely up for multiple plays. And I really think this is one of those, like, just one of those games that can keep going for years.
Yeah, it's like a desert island game. It's one of those games that you could probably play over and over again and, you know, never really get bored with it, because there's always going to be something new. There's going to be new cards, there's going to be new ideas, new strategies, new paths, new interactions with people, new metagame stuff that's going to pop up depending on the people and the group you're playing with. It's always got something to offer. So that's one of the things that I really dig about it. So before we go on to our next game, it might be fun for us to kind of take a brief detour into food. I want to kind of, yeah, exactly. Opa. I want to kind of say, they actually made us yell that, didn't they? I actually was really, really happy with the quality of the food at Origins. I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about it. Joel Eddy talked about it in his kind of Origins recap podcast that he just released. If you are not subscribed to Joel's new podcast, which is Drive Through FM, I would definitely recommend going and checking that out, because it's a very thoughtful podcast. He releases it about once or twice a month. The audio quality is stunning. And Joel always talks about kind of fascinating things. And this particular episode that he just released, number 3, was all about Origins and his kind of recap. So I'm going to echo Joel's sentiments on that, which is, I think the food offered at Origins was vastly superior to Gen Con.
Not even in comparison.
Yeah,
Gen Con feels like crappy cafeteria food that you're getting really gouged for. And the food truck food is not bad. It's just, man, you're paying like $13, $14 for a sandwich. And here it's like they've just got this awesome infrastructure that is definitely able to hold the attendees of Origins. Like that, you can tell that they were not like bulging. Like, that's Gen Con just feels like it's always bulging. And it's kind of almost like, any of you agoraphobes out there, do not go to Gen Con, go to Origins.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Origins is just much looser. And they had better options. I mean, they had that whole market. I forget exactly, North Market or something.
The North Market, yeah, they just got tons of places.
Yeah, I mean, and very vegetarian friendly. Very, I mean, they had, you know, if you're health conscious at all, they had great options there. If you weren't health conscious, you know, you get you get yourself some good sausage and kielbasa, and you know, have a blast with that.
And
exactly.
Some shawarma, you know, if you want your Indian food, you know, chana masala.
And then there were tons of great restaurants, including the Meat on a Stick restaurant that I went to.
I can't speak for that one.
Oh my goodness, that was
coma.
I was
that,
like
Jeff.
trashed. I was trashed when that was done. It was like there's so much meat. You know, I got the meat sweats, which is always a goal, but regret. It's an interesting kind of combination. Like it's a goal to get the meat sweats because you're like, I want to eat so much of this delicious food that I get the meat sweats. But then once you get the meat sweats, you're like, oh my God, why did I do that? Like it's kind of a mixture of like regret and like enjoyment. I don't even know what to say about it. It was a steakhouse that was kind of a Brazilian steakhouse. And they just come with the meat. Like they have like this little wooden, it looks like an hourglass. And if you turn it green side up, they just keep bringing meat. If you turn it red side up, it means stop. For the love of God, stop. Give me a minute to choose something before you bring me something else. And it's like impossible. It's like you have peppercorn encrusted top sirloin. Would you like that? Sure.
Yes.
And then like 30 seconds later, they're like, would you like bacon wrapped chicken? Yes. Yeah. And like 30 seconds later, they're like, would you like this beautiful fish wrapped? It's like, yes. And then they come by again. It's like, we have glazed pork, glazed ham. Would you like? Sure. We have like, pork loin. Yes. We have prime. Yes. Like, it's just like anything that they bring by looks good. And so you're like, yep. And before you know it, you're about to die. So, and even that was like reasonably priced. So it's just a fantastic place to go if you're looking to get like a decent value for your food. You're getting good food at a decent price. And we had our little Greek restaurant that Jason insisted we go to, and that was pretty darn good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a great little Greek place where we got flaming cheese and tried a few of the local beer offerings. The good old Cuyahoga River, the Burning River one.
Yes, yeah, the Burning River beer. That's right.
Wow. Let's see.
So Andrew just shared a story that somebody fell off the vegetarian wagon at one of those meat places, and the story was told at their funeral. So I'm hoping it wasn't the place that killed him.
It was the meat place that ultimately did him in from being a vegetarian. Yep.
or he just had like a massive coronary after eating there. I don't know.
Yeah,
one of the two.
Gosh. Well, good thing you're still with us, Jeff.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I didn't feel like I was going to be there later that night. I was just kind of sitting there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, man, I can't even move." So, but yeah, if you go to Origins, you're going to have lots of great options. Don't be afraid to walk. I'd say
and nothing's that far. I mean, it's further from one end of Gen Con's convention hall to the other than it is to get to like a dozen awesome restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely. And reasonably priced as well. You can get a good meal for like $15, Mm-hmm. And I'm talking a meal, not just a sandwich, So
yes.
Definitely recommended. All right. So Yeah. Andrew's telling me to walk off the food. Yeah, I tried that. It didn't really work. We kind of rolled down the street after that place. So it was amazing. But yeah, all the food was good. All right. So after we tried to douse you in some PAX Renaissance and light you as if you were a heretic, what did we do after that? Because you're the keeper of the records.
It's Age of Industry is what I've got.
Haha, yes, that was awesome. Yeah, we had another Martin Wallace.
Yeah, I played Brass. I believe Will had also played Brass. I don't know if I think that all four of us had at least played Brass, which is very similar to Age of Industry. And I think that we played this one with Zach, and he had already played Age of Industry itself. So it was a pretty smooth sailing game because we all kind of knew what we were getting into and knew how generally the game was going to work.
Yeah, it was definitely fun to team up one as well because there are some, definite differences. We played the basic map, but we played the New England side, which had all the shipping lanes, which is something that's different from version. Yeah, which is different from Brass. You're not just talking about the Birkenhead virtual link. You're also talking about all of the shipping lanes and access to markets for coal and
the markets for coal kind of feels like the Birkenhead virtual link, just a touch, just a smidge, because it's like abstractly, it's like an inset, and you have to like build specifically to there. You can't build through there because of the fact that Pennsylvania is not just right next to Massachusetts, and the coal mines were not even in that part of Pennsylvania anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's definitely something that's different and fun. I mean, there are distant markets in Brass as well. Don't get me wrong, but you know this game, especially with the sea lanes, is different. Of course, you don't have the whole mid game reset that you do in Brass from the canal to the rail era. So there were a lot of people, you know, that I knew that were interested. And kind of talking about the differences between these two games. TC Reed, who's on the show quite a bit as a co-host as well, you know, he's one of the people that was like, you know, I want to talk about Age of Industry and, you know, the differences between this and Brass. And so I'm glad you had a chance to, you know, play this one. Now, Joe, have you played Brass at all?
Oh, I've played Brass, yeah, half dozen times. I like Brass quite a bit. The way that I would put it is Age of Industry is almost like this big old block of clay that you kind of can mold into whatever kind of game you're looking for. There's, you know, tons of expansion maps out there for Age of Industry, and they do things differently. You're going to be able to play a different game, kind of like it is with Age of Steam. I would say maybe Age of Industry even has some more, like, maybe a little bit more differences in some cases. Obviously, some of the Age of Steam maps are just amazing and really change up the game. But here in Age of Industry, I would say Brass is almost like this beautiful sculpture that just is one very static experience that is, you know, to me, Brass just feels like maybe the best Age of Industry map. Maybe that's the way to put it. Like Age of Industry is this awesome system. Brass is the best map. Unfortunately, you need like a whole separate game to be able to play Brass instead of Age of Industry. I know there's probably people out there who are saying like that's blasphemous, whatever. These are the big differences. But here's what it comes down to. In Brass, some of the action, specifically the shipping action, is really just kind of a way to get a whole buttload of points. You spend a lot of money, but you get a buttload of points. In Age of Industry, the shipping is just much more involved. It's much more of an interesting part of the game. You actually do ship to those places like they take the place of the distant market. And I really enjoyed that part. I liked how they were sort of a mixture of the distant market and also had some coal coming in to represent what was getting shipped to New England in this time period. Great thing telling the story of New England and the way that it was that the cotton industry was starting in New England. And I look forward to playing more maps and more other interesting things here in Age of Industry. If my group will ever give up, you know, Brass, it's the best. And come on, guys. Age of Industry has got so many different directions you can go with it. Don't we all want to be able to try them all?
Well, you know, I think that there's room in people's collections for both, to be honest with you. You know, Brass is a very, very unique experience. You know, it's a very unique animal because of all the things that I had mentioned before, the mid-game reset and all that fun stuff. You know, the crushing debt. It's not a Martin Wallace game unless you can have crushing debt.
Yeah, it was a really loosey-goosey version. It felt very loosey-goosey because you can just take loans and pay them back, and you can actually take a loan and pay it back before you pay any interest without any penalty. And I thought, that felt a little bizarre to me because really, like, one of the things about Martin Wallace games, like Age of Steam and Age of Industry, maybe this is like Steam is to Age of Steam as Age of Industry is to Brass, but I guess that would make me a heretic because on the other side of that debate, I tend to like Age of Steam better just because of how it's tight and it punishes you.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting analogy, and I think there's probably some merit to that analogy because Martin Wallace does like to kind of go back to his earlier designs and then kind of streamline them or tweak them, which is a great segue opportunity for the game we're talking about later, which is a study in Emerald.
We may as well talk about it now. I mean, it's not the next game we played, but yeah, just why don't you go ahead and what did you think, Jeff, here? Because you've played A Study in Emerald First Edition many, many times. I know that you are like, it's almost like you're at that sort of Phil Eklund level of enjoying the story being told by the game. The fact that there's so many different things, like he threw in everything in the kitchen sink into that card deck. You got zombies, vampires. You know, there's just a lot more in the first edition. The second edition, I really think, was an attempt to streamline, which I think is Andrew Dennison's favorite thing to do. He loves streamlining.
Yes, absolutely. anything that you can do to make a game more simple and reduce the sort of overhead of too many choices. Andrew is all over that. So I think that you probably have a good point there. So At this point, I'm trolling Andrew, looking
Yeah,
for. There he
says,
goes.
He said
says
barf. Yeah, we finally about 10 seconds delayed, but Yep, Andy. Thanks for being here, Andy. Now he can't stand the fact that I'm saying anything about streamlined. So he hates the streamlined versions of games. Jeff,
Right.
where does that put you then with this second edition? He is typing.
Yeah, for me, here's the thing. The second edition, I mean, it was fun, but it didn't feel as tense to me. Things were a little too loose.
Mm-hmm.
They were a little too easy, you know?
Once you get those city cards, they're just points. There's nothing you can do about them. And I saw you going for them, and I was like, wow, those must have been pretty good in first edition. So I started fighting you for them, but really, like, you can let somebody just ham up the points in their hand, and the game can literally be over in like 5 or 6 rounds just because somebody's like, yeah, I went for the city cards, nobody else did. So, I think it could be a little bit better balanced with people who know the power of things. But I agree with you that it's just like it doesn't have a tug of war over cities like there used to be.
No.
So there's less mechanisms to have to explain. But then at the same time, that's an element of depth that honestly I kind of felt was missing, because once Jeff had those city cards, it was like, what are we going to do? Just watch him win? I guess that's what's going to happen. By the way, congrats, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just, the movement was kind of streamlined as well. If my memory serves me correctly, maybe Andrew can tell us if he played this game before.
I don't believe he has.
He hasn't? Oh, well. When the old map actually had connections. And so movement was linear. Like, you had to go from point A to point B to get to point C. And in this game, you play a card that allows movement. You just jump. You could just jump anywhere
just like
on
teleport
the board that you want to go. And so there's not as much thought. You know, like in the first edition, like, you can see those agents coming. Like, they're coming, and, you know, they're probably coming for you, you know, like if you think those guys are loyalists, they're coming to assassinate you. And it's like, okay, what do I do? You know, can I get enough cards in my hand to try to go after this old one in this location in New York here before these agents show up and wipe me off the board? Or do I run? Do I, try to get out of Dodge before they get there? And there was just like a lot more tension involved, and there was a little bit more kind of planning I felt that you had to do, because you couldn't just sort of bop around the board at will. And so that was something that I'm remembering. It's been a while since I played first edition. I'm sure someone will let me know if I'm wrong, but that there was definitely more tension in the first edition, I felt, than in the second edition.
From what I understand, kind of a swingy weirdness, like just an odd quality to it that made it very endearing, and I didn't feel that much at all in the second edition. I felt like it was a really cool design, and I was interested in it, but I felt more like it was the sort of hammered out, these are the things in the game before that seemed like they worked really well, and we're just going to forget about the rest of that stuff. So I think it really is like that. Martin Wallace first edition is usually the raw version that as gamers we're more excited by, whereas maybe the second edition is the one that's better to get people to play that game, and then maybe eventually you'll move them to the first edition, or maybe eventually you realize, like, actually the things he took out of first edition are ones that I'm kind of glad I don't have to explain and deal with anymore. Once you have once or twice the zombies in the game, and you're like, what? So
no, that's what makes it fun. Here's what I have to say. Here's what I have to say about that, and maybe I'll bet you Andrew would agree with me on this one. We'll see if he decides he does. Is when you sand away the rough edges of a game to smooth it out, to get rid of those weird little edge cases and things. And this is something I said during the episode about A Study in Emerald. You kind of lose the character. Mm-hmm. And what you end up with is something that's much more homogenized, and it really kind of loses some of the magic that it had, that sort of lightning in the bottle. And lightning in the bottle isn't always clean. It isn't always fair. It doesn't always strike where you want it to strike, but boy, it's interesting,
And I would say, Jeff, that I feel the same way as you do. I apply what you just said to like Steam and Age of Steam though. I'm like, Steam, Age of Steam all the way. Steam is, I have no place for Steam. In this specific case, I don't know where I would be because it sounds like a lot of the things that were taken out were ones that if I heard them described as a part of the game, I'd be like, I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. But at the same time, like, I understand totally what you're saying because I can get behind you. It's just I don't know if this specific game works for that metaphor as well as for you as it does for me. Obviously, I don't know because I've never played. You're the expert on that, but I would apply that to Age of Steam and Steam.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I actually follow the other direction. I kind of like Steam.
Maybe I knew that.
Over Age of Steam. Yeah, I mean, Age of Steam to me, the way that cube kind of market works and the die roll works has kind of irked me. Whereas in Steam, where you kind of see the sets of cubes that are going to become available through the new city action, I kind of feel in some ways like I could plan a little bit better in Steam than I could Age of Steam because of that one little random element,
like just the dice, the very
and it just kind of it was the one thing that kind of threw me.
Yeah, you can end up in a game of Age of Steam where like the threes just never get rolled.
And you're just host. You're just host.
And the white threes just stay on the board the whole time. They just never come out. And it's an edge case, but it seems to at least have happened to everybody once.
Mm-hmm.
If you've played quite a bit of Age of Steam.
Yeah, and I haven't played quite a bit of it, so I maybe should give it more of a chance. I still own them both.
I might swing that way, Jeff, just because Steam only had like 10 or so expansions, and they all sounded pretty vanilla, like they were all just tied to real places. Whereas Age of Steam has got, like Disco Inferno, and it just had...
That holds no interest for me. None. Like the goofy stuff, like Steam on the Sun, Steam, Heaven and Hell. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, if you want to make a game like that, like, make a game like that, but don't... the whole trains... shuttling souls between purgatory and heaven. It's like, no, thank you. And the steam across the surface of the sun, I think that was one of them. And it's like, okay, like lunar rails. Yeah, like lunar rails I could kind of get behind because we did actually go to the moon, and I could kind of envision that at least. Like it's a little bit, it's less of a stretch for me to imagine. So
you need to be grounded in reality.
I need to be grounded in a little bit. Yeah. Like, in Disco Inferno, like I want to burn every disco album ever made. So I can't stand disco. I mean, I grew up in the tail end of the disco age and hated it, which is why everyone of my generation was listening to Led Zeppelin and Cream, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't stand
decades
listening
old
to disco. Right. And so, and then the Police came along and we're like, okay, thank God, something different, something interesting. He had the Police and Rush. That was like it. And then you heard whispers of like Elvis Costello and other people. But my God, that disco era was just terrible. So yeah, I have no interest in Disco Inferno. That's terrible stuff. But anyway, that's just my editorial about music, and then making a train game about it. I'm like, no. So yeah, to me, I much more prefer the tweaks that I've seen, like in the Age of Steam maps, that are to different locations, like Barbados or Jamaica, or the Pennsylvania map is a really good Age of Steam map. Because again, that's our Steam. Yeah. That's like
the Barbados one, I think they might've made that for both, but I know I've played Barbados on Age of Steam.
Yeah. But Barbados is Age of Steam. And I mean, there's supposedly you can kind of cross over with them, but I don't know. They don't exactly match up perfectly, but I like the ones that are tied to places. And so, these Steam expansions that are different sort of geographies and different locations and different challenges, those are things that I appreciate much more than the train from purgatory. The oddball ones are not really my cup of tea. But
I get you.
That's just me. Your mileage may vary, right?
Well, there's 100 and something Age of Steam maps. I think that's I feel like I'd be able to. That could be a lifestyle game, and I think sure, Andy has mentioned that. Andy also says Age of Steam is great because it makes people cry. So Anyway, let's we
Well,
want to talk about kind of try to cover a lot of the newer light games, kind of in a
sure,
bit of a swoop here,
sure.
and we can make we can make a little bit of time to talk at length of once if we feel the need. But let's see, we got here. First of all, Hanamakoji. Weirdly enough, a little 2-player game that Jeff showed me, and this was right after Jeff was like, "Joe, I just want you to know, not every game has to be a heavy game." So then he shows me Hanamakoji, or maybe it was after that you were telling me that, but Hanamakoji, and I'm like, "Oh, I really like the decisions here. This is like a nice little 2-player game I could play with my wife, and I could see that game entering kind of into my collection." Here's what's cool about it. It's a 2-player game where you've got a hand of cards, but you're never going to be able to just play them. There's 4 different ways for you to play cards. One of them is to set down, is to make groupings of cards where it's like I split, you choose, where your opponent chooses. You split 4 cards, your opponent chooses 1, you get stuck with the other. So you end up being forced to make interesting decisions about what you've been dealt, and not just like, I got dealt this is awesome. The only way you can play a card for yourself is to play it face down. So your opponent, you kind of have to do that. I guess you could do it right at the end. But you're really running out of cards here fast and having to play them in different weird ways. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the games that really kind of struck me. My buddy Matt showed it to me at ConCon, and I kind of instantly fell in love with it. I'm normally not into the geisha theme, and thank God it's all tasteful. It's not like the normal thing when it comes to geishas.
They're not just courtesans. They're not like prostitutes.
Absolutely, but unfortunately, that's generally the way they're portrayed in a lot of games.
It is the closest comparison that we have.
And so, this is... Yeah, unfortunately. So, this it's a great little game. Everything that you just described is wonderful. It's quick. And you have the 2 different win conditions. The first person to sort of attract the attention of 4 of these geisha will win, or one person who gets 11 points worth of the attention of these ladies will win. And if it's a tie, like it was with my wife and I the other night, the person who gets the 11 points wins rather than the person who had the 4. So it's a really, really interesting little game, and it's got a lot of replayability, and it's got a little bit of metagame in it as you start playing with the same person, and you kind of start playing the person as well as the game, and that's kind of fun as well. So
absolutely,
one I highly recommend. Yeah. What's another one of the little ones we played?
We played Not Alone.
Yes.
Not Alone is an interesting new take on like kind of the big one versus many game. It's like a hidden movement game where one person plays as an alien that's sort of, I guess, lumbering around. They can see they can't see where all the different players are at. So we played with, I think, the full complement of 7 players. And so one of us was, and it was Eric from the Push to Luck podcast, was the alien, and his job was to try to kill enough of us so that our morale would kind of be reduced to 0, essentially.
Yeah, your willpower. Yeah, your will. The planet is trying to assimilate you. Yeah, it's trying to sort of
assimilate all of the players.
Yeah.
And our goal was to try to wait it out and essentially keep the shreds of our being. And what this game boils down to is that there's 10 different locations, and each one is represented by a card numbered 1 through 10. Each one has a different ability. You start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your hand, and on your turn, you're going to play a card face down, and everybody does this simultaneously, and that's the place that you're going to. And one of the places lets you acquire new cards of a higher level, which there's these cards 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and other ones will reduce the amount of time it takes for the good guys to win. This whole time, the alien is deciding at the same time as the players are where he's going to set himself, and then he will later on in the game get more powerful tokens to be able to place in different places. And then if you get caught, you don't get to do what it says on your card. If you do get to do whatever it says on your card, then those things involve like being able to pick up your hand and which gives you back your options, because every time you play a card to go to a certain spot, you're not allowed to play that card again until you pick it up. And there are different effects that let you pick cards up. So everything is kind of tied to what's on these cards. It was a pretty simple game. You know, it was different from a lot of other games, but it was different in a really kind of a new little niche of games that you might see other ones coming out like this, where, you know, it's a big table full of people that are all choosing where they're going by their cards, and this one other player is, you know, trying to find them. So kind of like Nuns on the Run, only much more like you're going to get caught. It's okay. It's going to happen to like one person pretty much every round. It's just a matter of trying to, you know, make it so that he's not able to get you 100%. So I thought it was a simple and interesting little mechanism. I'm worried. I want to see more in the game. I want to see more different locations. I want to see like how this system can kind of be explored a little bit deeper, because it seemed like there was really kind of one base strategy, and I think that the games are going to feel similar the more that you play them. We only played it once, so I might be wrong. But, you know, when there's this one win condition and there's a place you can visit that will kind of expedite that win condition, and then there's an upgraded version that's even better, I really think that, you know, in the late game, that's all people are going to be spamming. That's where the alien has to go unless he just wants to straight up lose the game. And I think that it's kind of going to pinhole you into similar situations, though I want to see this system developed a little bit more and see if they can find a way to make a little bit, just a little bit more leeway and wiggle room in it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my first play of this as well. And then I played it when we got back from Origins with my kids, and they really seemed to take a shine to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get what you're saying, but, you know, as far as like there are certain locations that will sort of speed the end of the game for the good guys. It's basically when the rescue is going to arrive, and you're just trying to sort of hold out and resist the will of the planet here until your rescue ship arrives and whisks you away, right? So I kind of get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's that classic kind of doublethink game. You know, it reminds me of that Princess Bride. You know, well, surely I cannot choose the cup in front of me. You know, but you know that, so therefore I should choose the cup in front of me. But if I choose the cup in front of me, and you anticipated that I would refuse to take the cup in front of you, then that means that this cup is, you know, and then you know. Is never get involved in a land war in Asia. The second,
was
only
awesome, had that
slightly less known, is never gamble against a Sicilian with death on the line.
You never gamble against the alien, right?
So like it reminded me of that Princess Bride thing, you know, where it's like there's a lot of doublethink, because you're right. I mean, the alien is going to feel, because I was the alien when I played against my kids,
sure, of course.
And you're going to feel that pressure to go there all the time. But the other players know that. And the interesting thing is, okay, is that every time I've played this game, it seems to follow a pattern. Either one team or the other seems to get a very clear advantage early in the game. And then towards the end of the game, things tighten up. And I've played the game twice, and actually 3 times. And each of the times that I've played the game, it's always come down to, you know, 1 or 2, you know, sort of 1 or 2 spaces on this track, which records sort of the victory condition, right? So every time the aliens tag somebody, they move closer to assimilating you. There's like a target in the middle of this little board that comes with the game. And, you know, one half is for the alien, the other half is for the humans who've been stranded on the planet. And so their token is moving towards the middle to be rescued. The aliens is moving towards the middle to assimilate and, you know, grab them before they can, you know, leave the planet. And so every game that I played, which is only a whopping 3 times, it actually has tightened up. And so then that doublethink really comes in. There's a lot of pressure, because you're like, if you're the alien, you're like, I got to go here, because if they go here, they could conceivably win the game, but they know that. So they might go for this location over here. And, oh, by the way, since it's late in the game, I have other tokens I can put out that might help me. Ooh, and I have this unique power card. And that's one of the things that I think maybe in your analysis of it, Joe, you might be kind of forgetting, which is...
Yeah, I've never played as the alien.
There are sets of cards for the humans and sets of cards for the aliens. And the alien... basically gets to draw a card every turn and kind of has the opportunity to use that card. And these cards can have very powerful effects. So, for example, one of the cards would say, move the alien token from the card that you chose to an adjacent, or take this planet token and put it between two cards. Both of those cards are now inactive. And so there are other ways that you can kind of mess with your opponents through the card play. And since the cards are coming out differently at different times in different situations, I haven't really felt it be samey yet. So, who knows how I'll feel after more plays. But and I can also tell you it feels very different at different player counts.
Yeah, I could imagine that being quite different. And I really think what's great about this is just the simultaneous play means this could very easily just hit the table. And you play it once, you play it again. And, especially it says it's supposed to be kind of best with like 4 to 5, which we played with a bunch of players. So almost
7. Yeah.
Yeah, there was at least one person getting caught every time. I think that 7 is kind of almost a bad thing to print on the box. It's like, because you're with that many players, there's less double think and there's more just kind of like, well, where do I know somebody's going to go? Because with how many different situations there are, it's not so much choosing if you're going to find somebody, it's choosing like which person you want to find, I think, is the alien. But very cool idea conceptually, and one that I would absolutely play again. It was a very light, quick game, and it did field, an interesting new wrinkle on this specific type of hidden movement and, one versus many play.
Absolutely.
Moving along.
Yep, right along.
I will just say quickly, I played Exoplanets without Jeff, and he played Caverna, the 2-player game.
Ooh, yeah.
My thoughts on Exoplanets, we did play a rule wrong, but all in all, I was a bit disappointed that it was just a very, very basic Euro. Like, you have 3 different types of resources. The way you get those resources is not that interesting to me. You're going to be essentially forced to play a drawn tile. There's not that many options. There's only 3 resources, so it's not really that big of a deal. You're only going to get 2 different resources anyway. And you got goals. You have things you can either use for goals or you can use for a special ability. And I thought it was cool to have those dual use, but some of those goals are like, why did you even print this? Like, this is never, ever going to happen. So I literally got a goal in the very first round of the game, decided I was going to spend my entire game trying to do it. And I realized at about round 4 that I was going to get about 4/5 of the way towards it. And I couldn't imagine, like, I felt like I played a pretty good game and I couldn't imagine ever actually getting there. But I guess it's kind of I don't know, the randomness of the abilities that you draw is one of the things you're really at the mercy of. And it turns into feeling like it has a little bit of take that elements. And I did not really enjoy it for that. So I did not like my first play of Exoplanets. There was a rule we played wrong, but I don't think it affected it all that much. It was just too generic Euro for me to be at all interested to go further with it. That being said, if I have somebody who really loves the game, I'm going to try to dig deeper and find what's there.
Yeah,
what did you think of the Caverna 2
I didn't have a chance to check that, but the Caverna 2-player was really good. I was quite impressed with that. My main worry about the Caverna 2-player was this. I felt that the Agricola, all creatures great and small, was a money grab, and here's why.
No, I understand.
Because the original game that came in the box was okay. The first expansion kind of fixed the game because it added more variety and different.
It added variety, period. There wasn't.
No, there really wasn't. And then the second expansion really just kind of was the icing on the cake, and it really was an enjoyable 2-player version of Agricola, although eventually I was just like, I'd rather play Agricola. So I ended up moving it along and got quite a nice price for it because at that time it was out of print. So I was really leery about this Caverna 2 player because I thought, oh God, here we go again, right? So we're going to get this game that is decent, but it doesn't, it's not going to have replay value, and I'm not going to want it, right? So give it the raspberry. I was wrong. It's really a complete game in the box. There is a lot of variability in the setup and how the turns are going to flow. The game ramps up. You get more and more actions as the game goes along. It's got a really interesting little mechanism where the actions are kind of in the middle between the two players, and the start player chooses one, then you choose one. The start player might choose a second, then you choose a second, but nobody can take the same action in the same round. So there's a lot of that kind of timing of like, okay, well, do I take this action now? Because I'm worried my opponent's going to take it if I don't take it now. And the order in which those tiles are going to come out is going to be different. And you have to sort of excavate your cave, and you sort of randomly put tiles on your cave board. And those are kind of like the buildings and the opportunities. So as you excavate, they're going to come out in a different order. There's going to be some that you will never uncover because you might not need to excavate your whole cave. So there was a lot to think about. It was very enjoyable. If it had been available to purchase, I would have bought it. So
I really wanted to get it. They only had 21 copies.
Yeah, so yeah. And Joel Eddie got one. Curse you, Eddie.
Yeah.
So yeah. It was definitely worth seeing and playing, and I really enjoyed it. So I would recommend that one highly. I was glad I had a chance to play it.
All right, next up here, Pit Crew, also by Stronghold. Not Alone was by Stronghold. Pit Crew is a cooperative team game where you're going to have teams of 2 players that are taking on the roles of pit crews in a NASCAR environment where they're like really quickly trying to change tires and refill the engine. And it's all abstracted by essentially the game of Speed. If anybody's ever played Speed, which is usually played with a deck of cards, and what it is usually it's a 1-on-1 head-to-head where you're trying to essentially count up or down using the cards in your hand based on two community card piles, and the first person to run out of their deck is done. And Pit Crew is similar to that, only you are actually going to get scored. There's going to be multiple laps, and you have different games, sort of mini games, that are all still tied to the speed aspect, because guess what? The game is a time game. It's not timed. It's time as in based on whoever gets done first gets to start rolling a die, and they get bonus points for every time they roll a 6 on a die. So they can roll as much as they want, and that kind of really ramps up how quickly the other team wants to get done. You have bonuses for, like, if there's 2 suits in the game, and you get bonuses if you can fix a tire, change a tire with all the same cards of a color. So you've got this these extra little mini goals that you're working towards. Anyway, what did you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, this is a game that I had played as a prototype at a convention here in Jersey when Jeff Engelstein showed it for the first time, and it pretty much is unchanged from what I saw. You just have the 2 teams that are trying to change the tires. They're trying to refill the car with fuel, and they are trying to eventually kind of like service the engine and make sure that that's all set to go as well. So it's the speed game exactly as you described it, but it has that theme, and it was a unique theme. It was the first game I had ever played that had anything to do with pit crews. I've been playing Thunder Alley for I don't know how long, and other race games where it's like, oh, you go to the pits, but this was a game that shows you what's happening in the pits, and it had that speed element of, hey, you want to be the first team to get your car back out on the track and get them moving, because as you said, the first team that finishes gets to start rolling this die, and there's a little racetrack with a little wooden car, and every time you roll a 6 you get to move your car, and so you would think, okay, well, the best thing to do is to finish as fast as you can and go, but rolling the die, of course, is random. You don't know what results you're going to get. And so, that's not a guarantee. Whereas these kind of bonuses that you get, they're called turbo bonuses for completing tasks on the car in the same suit and with the correct sequence of cards, actually might end up moving you further than the team that finished first and rolled the die and maybe just didn't have very good luck, or maybe they did have good luck and you put your car together awesomely. So it's really kind of like fun. There's a lot of tension when you're the second team and you hear them rolling that die, and you want to finish up your car.
Yeah, you're like, just get everything done.
Get it done, right? Yeah, it's like get it done. And but at the same time, you want those bonuses. So, and then if you make a mistake in your pit crew, that's going to hurt you. Your opponent's car actually gets to go forward for every mistake that you make. So, I really thought it's a light game. It's a quick game. It's cooperative. It's got tension, but it's not super complex. Like when you think about Space Cadets Dice Duels, you think about Space Cadets, the original, kind of real-time cooperative games that Jeff and Sydney Engelstein and Brian Engelstein have made. They're much more complex affairs, whereas this was like real simple, entry level, and I think it worked well for what it's setting out to do, which is give you that sort of feeling of running a pit crew, that time pressure, and offering up little tweaks and little fun things to add in, like little monkey wrench cards that you can get to mess with your opponent on future rounds and things like that. So I kind of liked it. What was your take on it?
I personally thought, by the way, yes, that is right. We run a canine slaughterhouse here. I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's our dogs probably greeting somebody. Anyway, sorry, that's in the background. What I thought of it was, you compared it to Space Cadets Dice Duels, and you've also compared it to Space Cadets. And I would honestly say that this is probably what I would consider the best of that specific type of game, I think, because it really does. Its weight does balance well for how quickly the game goes. There's, to me, like, I don't know, the theme starts to sort of melt away when I think of it as Speed, because I've played Speed my whole life, Jeff. Like, I've played Speed when I was like in 10 years old at like the Y day camps and stuff, and I've been playing Speed, up through high school, and I kind of, playing Speed feels a bit like playing War to me. And so Pit Crew, just for having that, like, I see it as just like several different mini games that all feel kind of like Speed. But that being said, I think it is probably the best of these cooperative team games, because you don't have the sort of direct interaction that you do in Space Cadets Dice Duel that can result in players wanting to punch each other and the players on their team and their opponents, which is kind of my feeling in that. And I hated the dice in Space Cadets Dice Duels. Here, I feel much better about, like, what it's trying to do is simple. I think the ideal situation is probably you get one parent with one kid and one parent with another kid, and you get those divided in teams like that. And I just imagine, young kids can play this game easy. And for that reason, that's what I think is most successful at what it's trying to do. I think that Space Cadets failed for me because of how many different games you had to teach all at once. And I think that Dice Duels failed for me just because of how head-to-head the game was, and when you added that with the randomness of all the dice rolls, it just turned into this ball of absolute frustration for me. And then I think Captain Sonar really did what Space Cadets Dice Duel was trying to do, and it did it right by taking out the dice. Anyway, Pit Crew, the best that I've played of Jeff Engelstein's cooperative little games. Probably not one that I'm going to be reaching for because I don't find myself in those situations, but I could totally see, here in Boone, Iowa, we have the racetrack a mile from my house. And I got a lot of kids that might be interested in this type of, stressful, it's simple and it's quick. It does what it's trying to do. I hate the art, though. I really do. I hate the art. I hate the references. I think that the production is kind of shoddy. If you can get over that, though, Pit Crew is just fine. And really, Stronghold games, it's not that much different from the other games, but I just really don't like the specific art of this game.
What didn't you like about the art?
The race cars were, to me, very bare bones, and all they had was just kind of like a font version of a Strongholds game written on them. And aside from that, like, these did not look to me like real stock cars, like real race cars. Like, if you've seen one of those, Jeff, they look like they've got cursive. It looks like the entire race team has like signed it in a giant decal before they go out there. So it looked to me like very Spartan for a race car game, including the actual track itself. I did like the little car meeples. I mean, they were fine. They could have done better and done a custom die instead of just a 6-sided die. They could have done a D6 where only one side is like a race car and everything else is blank. I just think there were ways that they could have improved it. The cards all are just, it's just a bunch of numbered cards. So I don't know. It's kind of that same sort of artwork that you'd see in like Splashpoint Fire Rescue, where it looks like it's trying to be computer generated, but not quite, and it's top-down view, and I'm not a big fan of that.
Well, I guess I can understand some of those points. I love the numbers on the cars. because the numbers on the cars, which is on the roof of the car, is actually the number that you have to hit when you're filling the fuel tank.
Yeah, they do have a
Which
gameplay.
Which is really cool.
Equivalent, yeah.
As far as the advertisements for Stronghold games on the cards, that doesn't really bother me. I mean, let's face it, NASCAR, has sponsors. And
certainly they do. Yeah, there should have been more stuff.
It. But could there have been more? Yes, yeah, I agree. There could have been more. Like, and even if it was more Stronghold games,
yeah,
like just to have more stickers and decals, or like instead of I'm probably showing my age here, like a decal that says STP. I don't even know if STP is a company anymore. But instead of STP, that oval kind of decal that I remember seeing all the time when I was a kid on race cars. You might have SCAW, for Space Cadets Away missions or something. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't even have to have, like, it might have even been a fun Easter egg thing to kind of like try to guess what the names of the Stronghold games were, based on, partially seen decals, or, decals that were just letters, or, you could have had one that was 504,
Mm-hmm.
just
absolutely.
504, a green 504, it's like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that could have been fun. Like,
just a few missed opportunities is all.
Yeah, it might have been a missed opportunity, but
so not really a game for me. But I totally see I see the situation in which this game could work.
Right. So, all right, cool. Next up on our list is
Century Spice Road. Hooray!
Yes, the one that you convinced me not to buy.
Yes. And Jeff is still reeling from that. So
I'm not reeling from it, but I was a little disturbed when I got home. I'm like, I'll just look at Game Surplus, or I'll look at another online retailer and see if I can get it. Nope, nobody had it. I'm like, son of a gun, man.
I lied to you. You know what, Jeff? It's because I have bought up all the copies of Century Spice Road.
Exactly. You're hoarding them. You're hoarding them.
$1 million.
Yes. Well, here's the deal with Century Spice Road. It is, to me, it is a better version of Splendor. So I like it. I was not a fan of Splendor. So Splendor to me just ended up feeling so determined by the sort of flop of the cards. It's like, oh, look, I just spent 4 turns trying to buy this stupid card, and now that I've bought it, I flip the next one up. Oh, and look, it's cheaper than the one I just bought as far as like the resources it costs. It does the same thing as the one I bought, and oh, look, you already have everything you need for it. You're welcome. Glad I could help you. And then the stupid Nobles tiles, which I was never a real fan of. So I moved Splendor on. I didn't like Splendor. I like this much better. This one I like because the cost in game terms to get the cards that build your engine is really easy compared to Splendor.
And it's actually like ripped right from Pax Pamir, from Pax Porphyria.
It's like really easy. Yeah, it's like, hey, I've collected these spices, and I can sprinkle the spices on the cards in this row until I reach the card that I want, and I take it. Yep. And now I have that in my hand.
Sprinkle them.
And you do sprinkle, don't you? You sprinkle. You leave one on each card, right? You sprinkle them as you go, like fairy dust. Anyway, so you get the card that you want. It goes in your hand. And so building your engine, yes, you are sacrificing spices, which is what you need in order to fulfill these order cards, very much like Splendor. But because you're not paying variable amounts of resources that may or may not be more or less rare than any other resource, to get the cards to craft your engine that you're going to use to try to win the game, this game is much more satisfying. So I just pay whatever spices I have, I take the card I want, and hey, this is the engine I'm going to make for this, and I'm really happy. And we'll see if this engine wins me the game, and if it doesn't, the whole game takes like 20 minutes. I mean,
it's very quick.
Super fast, super quick, lot of fun. I like the theme better. The theme makes more sense to me. You know, and supposedly this is like the first part of like a series of games. So I'm kind of curious what they're going to do with that. There was a beautiful playmat that was available for purchase, but it was really high price. So
Yeah, silly high.
I didn't buy it. Yeah, I didn't buy it.
You don't need it for gameplay at all.
No, you don't. Not at all. But boy, it does look nice. So
and the game comes with nice components. So it comes with metal coins,
Yep.
actual little dishes for the
Yep.
cubes.
Yep, which is kind of cool, little spice
It's
dishes.
uncommon to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would recommend this one. I think it is a better Splendor. So I'm on the record of saying that. There we go.
I think personally, to me, it reminded me too much of Ascension. I did like a bit how the drafting line worked. Like Jeff says, you sprinkle the spices on there, but some of the cards, you know, at the beginning of the game, it's, you know, some cards are just a little bit better than others, and I really think that like once you get this game going, I feel like you're kind of at the mercy of what engine you've previously built quite a bit. And nobody's really going to be slowing down to take more cards. I found that I tried to build my cards and choose cards that I could kind of tree. So I just kind of had this sort of tree where I'd be working up these different types of spices and acquiring new ones as I went, and getting as many as I could so that way I could get to the point where I could finally start taking the cards. And my engine was just a little bit worse. Like I was about 10 points behind both the other players in our game, Jeff and my little brother Will. And I didn't really feel like it was, I mean, I suppose I need to play it more, but I didn't really feel like, I felt like I was more at the mercy of what cards were available when I went to go purchase cards and what cards were available when I went to go build my engine. And that double drafting down line, it's just kind of reminding me a little bit of Ascension. And to me, Ascension is a spineless game. And I feel like just a little bit, the nobles for me add a backbone, like sort of an overarching strategy in Splendor, even though, like you said, you can be looking for that third green card and it just doesn't come up. And you're just, you know, you're just SOL. So I'm not saying Splendor's a perfect game. I think, though, that Splendor has a little bit more depth than Century Spice Road, because once you get your engine going here, Spice Road feels kind of like a deck builder. And really, Splendor never feels like a deck builder. It feels like you're kind of still very much in control of the reins. You know, the horse isn't carrying you as much as I think Century Spice Road is. That being said, it's a shorter game, and it's one that I'm not going to be like, no, I'm not going to play that. It's so short. It's inoffensive, and it's kind of cool to get all those cards in your hand, be able to choose what order you're playing things in. I don't like the fact that all the orders are just randomly out there, and they're all just really boring. I want them to be more than what they are. I want them to be more than just recipes. It's another recipe making game, just like
that's
Splendor
no different than Splendor. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't like Splendor that much. I don't like it. I'm not that huge of a fan. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, well, I've already got Splendor. I'm not that big of a fan of it. Why do I need another Splendor? And I understand the things that you like about this one better. I think that it's probably got a lower entry bar of entry, but I also think that it lacks just a little bit of the depth of Splendor because of that.
Well, I'm going to respectfully disagree, because I don't think there's a whole lot of depth in Splendor, period, because of the random factors that we've talked about.
You and Trent would get along on this one. Trent, he's the worst game he's ever played, which is funny. It's really funny. It was there's some weird things you can do in Splendor to manipulate what tokens are available, and Trent hated that so bad, because we played with a guy who was just randomly hoarding all of the white chips, for no apparent reason. Not a guy who shows up at our game night consistently. You know, just probably somebody who was looking for something to do and was like, "Hey, I can do this," and quietly ruined Trent's experience and also part of his life.
Exactly. Right.
All right. Next up on
I
the list.
I kind of feel the same way that Trent does. I have a feeling. Anyway, what's next on our list? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no. Yeah. Next up on the list, we've got, Nippon by What's Your Game? And, no, Jeff. Okay. Wow. Your little laugh there means that okay. When I'm learning, Nippon is a crunchy, interesting game. And when I'm learning a difficult game, I'm usually not one to want to give my opinion on it right away. And the way that I feel about Nippon is basically, I'll sum it up in this. I think it might be the best What's Your Game for me. I think of the company, What's Your Game, the best they've produced so far for me is probably Nippon. My experience with it was really like, you know, I was learning a lot of what was going on, and you really do, like, you start building up. To me, it reminded me of Arkwright, except it was not an economic Arkwright. It was a strictly like Euroized. Everything was very Euroized in Arkwright. of the stuff that is in Arkwright, because you're making these factories. These factories are then going to be producing for you. You're going to be using these producing to try to take control, like area control, by fulfilling orders. To me, Nippon was a really, really great game that I locked up a little bit in, and I might have looked like I was frustrated, but that's common for me. That's like, if you're going to be playing a game like this. And for some reason, somebody told me Nippon was kind of a simpler game from them, and I was like kind of shocked by how really, I thought, involved and nuanced the game was. So the way that I'm thinking is, Jeff, I'm going to be playing Nippon hopefully this Sunday, and I want to keep cracking out that game, because to me, it's the best factory simulation that's on the market right now for me.
Well, I'm glad that you liked it. I was a little worried that you didn't like it, and I know a lot of people really kind of feel like Andrew does. He kind of chimed in here and said Madeira. I would argue that I like Nippon better than Madeira for sure. I really don't. Madeira is one of those games that is just extraordinarily complex, and a lot of the complexity is not really grounded in anything that I can easily sort of hang my hat on or understand. Like it's much more of an abstract game in many ways than Nippon. Nippon is got a very clear chain of things that you're trying to do. You're trying to have a good supply of coal so that you can produce goods in factories that you are developing. You have to increase your knowledge base so that you can build bigger and better factories, make more complex goods. You are competing with, foreign goods coming in from out of the country, as well as goods being produced by competitors within the country as represented by the other players. You are trying to, build up some rail lines to increase your distribution capacity. Distribution capacity increases your influence, as you could imagine. You're trying to develop some shipping, which is pretty abstracted. It's just victory points. But so much of the game just like makes sense to me. And the central brilliant tenet of the game, the aspect, is the colored worker mechanic in the game. The workers come in different colors. So you have black workers, you have these sort of weird mauve kind of workers, you have red workers, and you have white workers, and you have yellow workers and blue workers. And so it's like every color that you can imagine. And the workers are kind of randomly distributed on the spaces that represent the different actions that you can take. And when you want to take that action, you just take a worker. You just pluck a worker off of that area and you put them on your board. The kicker is that when it comes time to pay your salary, every different color of worker requires a payment of 3. So if I have only blue workers on my board, I'm only going to pay $3.
Yeah,
and it's going to be an amazing turn.
Very Euro-y.
If I end up, yes, absolutely. But if I have 3 different colors, if I have black, red, and blue, now I'm going to be paying $9. And when I'm only generating $12 of income at the start of the game, that's pretty crippling, right? Mm-hmm. But there are times when it's worth it. There's times when you need to do it. And even to me, those colored workers are thematic because the black guys are like the engineers, and the red guys are like, these are probably your guys who are your, pipe fitters and, working in the nuts and bolts of the factory. And, this guy is, an architect who is built, the blue guy's an architect, and he's like building, coming up with the plans for the next big factory. And so all of these people that your company employs, you need to pay, right? So I kind of like the different colors of the workers and the way it functions on your game board.
You just told yourself a little story there. I just would like to point this out. None of this is in the rules at all.
No,
this is all just like Jeff being like,
it's in my mind,
man. This is the blue worker. He's my friend. He's the good friend of mine.
That's right.
I know
he
this
is.
one.
He is. Come with me. We'll see in a world of pure imagination. Anyway, yes. With props to my man Gene Wilder there. Sorry that we lost him. Yeah, I know. Now I'm bringing everybody down.
Well, all right.
Gene Wilder was awesome. But yeah, no, I mean, like this is a cool part of this game. And then on top of that, you have other sort of ideas and mechanisms coming, and you can see the workforce that's coming up, and so you can make some plans and some predictions. And so there's so much crunchiness and meatiness in this game. We haven't even talked about the reorganization mechanic, and
it's got really cool round structure. It's all very centrally tied to the idea of producing and shipping your goods. Like it's you're not going to get that far away from it in this game. It's each action you're taking is really centrally tied to its idea, and that's what I liked about it. I felt like Madeira is a game where every decision you make is like a boomerang, and you're going to throw it, you're going to turn around, and it's going to come and slap you in the back of the head. And that's what I think Andy really loves about it. And I'm not saying I dislike that, but I just want it to feel a little bit more jointed together. So, you know, the different abstractions of where you can ship didn't work for me. But everything here in Nippon feels to me like I can understand how it's all connected to the game system. So,
right.
and you see that from... You can see that from round one, whether or not you know what is the right moves to make. And I really think that here you've got tough decisions, but you can generally assess your tough decisions at that moment. You can see enough ahead of you, and nothing is really going to come back and just slap you in the face. It's more like you just start fighting with other players over area control, and I like the way that area control is done here. It's simple in its area control, but I just think that all of these are little interlocking things that to me make for the best package of a game that's come from What's Your Game. And they really are kind of like the new age of Stefan Feld games. They seem to have picked up the torch from him somewhere.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say that the last thing I want to say about Nippon is it's definitely one of my favorite games. I've played it a ton. And one of the things that I want to kind of just throw out there to people is one of the ways that I know that this is a very strategic game. And one of the things that we haven't discussed is you basically
is that Jeff wins.
Yes, right. Is you are using your end game scoring during the course of the game, which is really cool. But
you know what? Maybe, Jeff, we should do an episode of The Long View about this.
I think we need to, because I know that TC really wants to talk about this.
Yeah, he's going to kill us if he listens to this, man.
But like, the thing about it that I really love is the fact that I often think that games that are very strategic tend to reward experienced players. So if you know what you're doing, you're going to do very well, as opposed to someone who's just learning the game, right? And this is a game that it's like, man, I do well in this game because I've played it so much. And I like games that reward skill in playing. And, you never go into a game trying to smack people around and crush them, because that can be very demoralizing and not very welcoming to people who are trying to get into the hobby. But at the same time, I do like it when a game kind of rewards you for your experience with it, and Nippon is definitely a game that does that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nippon's right there. I agree that it really does reward you for decisions. Here, I got my buddy David's over here, and he's brought me some coffee. So
nice,
thank you, David. We are now going to move on. Let's see. Is there any games? I'm trying to think here. David has been very influential in my gaming, in my game tables here recently. See if there's anything that we haven't played yet that he has talked about. Let's see. Did you play Innis yet?
Yeah. Okay.
So Jeff, we played Innis, and I feel like I need to do a little bit of a snigger here, like under my breath, like, "Hey, Jeff, remember our game of Innis?" Because Jeff
Innis.
Almost burst a blood vessel.
Innis, what can I say about Innis?
This is that Ameritrash game that has none of the random that I hate about Ameritrash. Just all you stabby with the people around the table. That's like
stabby. No. I was Julius Caesar, dude. I was Julius Caesar, and you were all gathered around me, stabbing me repeatedly over and over and over. And I held you guys off for so long. I fought the good fight. I had the no thank you card where I was just like, no, you can't do that. And I was holding on. And then all of a sudden, my buddy Jason kind of came in at the end. He's like, I'll just take this win. Thank you very much. And I was very happy for him for that. But I had a good time. I enjoyed it. It led to a lot of good laughs. In particular with your brother, because your brother,
you guys just wanted to eradicate Will. You picked up an alternate victory condition in that game, and that was to kill my little brother and to just wipe him from the map. And the funny thing is, Will told me later on.
He angered me.
Yeah, he told me later on that the whole root of his problem was that I misexplained a rule, and he felt like he was forced to fight you in the first round, and that just it was like, how dare you? How dare you do that? And Will's like, later on, we had the same sort of thing come up, and you're like, nah, you don't have to fight. It doesn't matter. And Will was just like, you ruined it. So I think I might have been responsible for that. But the thing is, you came up with an alternate victory condition, and I'm pretty sure the fact that Will was left with one single guy on the board at the end of the game meant that you succeeded.
I almost eradicated him. I wanted to so bad.
And that was all you wanted to do was like, is there any way that I can kill that guy? And that's kind of like what the Ameritrash experience, that's distilled what I enjoy about the Ameritrash experience. You know, like you're fighting each other, you're being like, hey, that guy's about to win. You got to go kill him. What about you, huh? You know, and that to me is just that sort of like table talk got going fast. Yep. It's always fierce. Yep. I love the Celtic art. I don't like the way that it clashes with the board art, which is just kind of like generic Magic land art.
Right.
But aside from that, though, I mean, I'm all about Innis. I do think that they could have made it a smaller production, and because it's really not, to me, other games that come out from them have been Kemet, Cyclades, and even though I'm not a huge fan of Cyclades, I see that there's a lot of game in those boxes. Like, there's a lot of game there, and I don't think there's as much in Innis. I mean, I think that there's a lot of variety. I don't think it's going to get old. But it's just, you know, like there's not that much stuff considering that they put it in a huge box and charged you as much as they did for those other games.
Yeah. It's a very interesting game. I mean, I enjoyed my play of it. It was funny, you know. It was just funny, and I'll take this opportunity to talk about your brother.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. You were saying throughout this gaming convention at the end of it, you were like, you know, Joe, I might actually take your brother over you if I had to choose a gaming partner. He's picking up on
brother. Exactly. Like what I want to say about your brother is he was a lot of fun to hang out with. He had a good sense of humor, just like you. Very laid back, unlike you.
Unlike me.
And really, you know, just like really just kind of rolled with stuff and was up for anything, you know, was up for any game that we wanted to play or anything we wanted to talk about, and had a real good spirit about him. And it was a lot of fun to play games with him. He was a very pleasant guy to hang around with, so I was glad to have the opportunity to meet him. And,
I know this is gonna sound weird, Jeff, but I think you really brought the best out in him. I think that, you know, just like he just enjoyed every game that we played over that entire weekend experience, and it was just really solid. You know, like I think that gave Will is a lot more excited now to participate in the gaming hobby after Origins than he was before. And I thought, man, this is make or break here. So it was a really great experience, I think, for him as well.
Good. Yeah, he was fun to hang out with as well. The two of you were, you know, the little brotherly moments you spotted were a lot of fun. Of you know, you and he kind of going back and forth with some stuff. So it was fun. It was definitely a good time. So that was Innis. Man, we've been going almost 2 hours here, man. We got to wrap this up. People are probably falling asleep. What else did we play?
Well, the last one that I showed you, so I showed you Innis, and I also showed you Steampunk Rally.
Oh, God. All right. So I'm not going to say anything about Steampunk Rally, and here's why. I had the meat sweats. I had come back.
The meat sweats make it impossible for you to really
came back from the Brazilian
game.
Restaurant, right? And all that I could do was like lay down. So I laid down for a while, and I was like, you know, flipping through the TV channels in the hotel room. And Joe's like, come on, man, we got to play Steampunk Rally. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's not that complex. I'm like, dude, I'm not really up for anything long. You know, because at first he's like, let's play Princes of the Renaissance. And I'm like, no. It's like, there's no way I'm playing that game with the meat sweats. And so he's like, oh, we'll play Steampunk Rally. It'll be great. It's short. It's light. It's fun. It's got this cool, crazy theme. You're going to love it. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to love anything. You could put anything in front of me.
I'm going to love a bed and a pillow.
So I kind of waddle out of the hotel room, and we didn't even go back to the to the convention. We went to the gaming area in the hotel, which is really nice, by the way. And we sat down, and I'm just sitting there sweating, sleepy. It's like my whole body's trying to shut down to digest this knot of meat in my stomach. And here's Joe trying to describe this game to me, and then he wants to go over every single card. He's like, now wait, just to kind of make things look, let me go over each of these things individually so that you understand. I'm like, I don't care. Why are you telling me this? And I'm sitting there, and I'm just sweating, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. And so we played, and I will say that it was a unique theme. I like the different inventors that are in the game, and they had a unique flair. And I'm not huge into race games. The only race games that I've played that I really, really like are like Thunder Alley. So I was kind of like, my main complaint about the game was actually the board. The main board of the game, there's like terrain. And if you go through this rough terrain, you get damage. And the icons to kind of let you know in this rough terrain are so small. And then when you have all of these little cardboard standees on this little track that's going around, you can't see anything. And it's like,
I can see that.
And so that was a little like, it's a nitpicky thing, but it kind of annoyed me, probably because I was trying to digest my food. I'm like a snake. It's kind of the way I felt about it. Like,
you were a
I had
snake,
just
and you
eaten like I just eaten a water buffalo or something, right? And then I just wanted to lay there. I didn't want to do anything, right?
Yeah.
And he's making me like stretch and like reach and try to read things. I'm like, no, man, I don't want to do anything except digest my food. So I really can't make any kind of a assessment of this. I blame the meat. So that's the first time you've ever heard that.
We'll take it for that. And that was the big last one. I think the other ones, like I played City of Big Shoulders, I played Bruges Without You, and those are both reviews that would be on the last episode of my podcast. We are, like you said, getting quite long. We did play a trial, just a half a game of Lignum, which I found to be really interesting. It's like planning the planning game is one thing I heard. I believe Andy actually said that, and I totally see why, because everything that you're doing is it's almost like these are the things that you're going to need, and they're in the opposite order of the way you're going to need them. And so you're advancing on a track like Tokaido or Francis Drake, where it's a linear track in which you can only move forward. You choose how many positions you move forward, though, and you're going to be collecting tokens that are going to give you abilities. You're going to be purchasing workers that are going to use these tokens for you to actually be able to get lumber from the board to your own lumber yard.
Mm-hmm.
Fulfilling orders, and the advanced game involves fulfilling orders and getting these special abilities. But you don't just get a special ability; you get a special ability, and you have to say like, okay, I want it next round, or I want it in the round after that, or the round after that. And so it's really like planning. You have to do a lot of that, and that's where the game really lies, because the actual getting your lumber and selling it is a pretty basic, like everybody's going to kind of be able to get to about the same spot unless you add in those interesting things, which I was a really big fan of, unfortunately, and only a half a game, which Clay at Capstone Games was awesome just to teach us that, because this was like the end of the day on Saturday. He was just dead. But
yeah,
we got through half that game, and it was really, really cool. It was a great little version of it that I can't wait to get the actual big one played.
Yeah, I agree. And the new edition looks like it's adding a lot. So, because my question to him was like, I have the original edition, and what's up with the Capstone edition? Is it just going to be kind of smoothing out some of the rules? And he's like, well, it's a double-sided board, and then you have this whole other section. And yes, we've kind of tweaked the rules, and we've added this and this. I'm like, all right, fine, sold. There's definitely enough new here that I'm interested in checking it out. So, I agree. That was really cool. And then I also want to give a shout out to Isaac Shavlev. He is making a game. I'm going to try and stall while I look it up a little bit. This is a little game that he designed along with, I think he worked with somebody else on it as well.
If you want to stall for a second, I can talk for just a second.
Sure,
here.
Yeah. And
I've got coffee.
Game. Yep. Oh, you got coffee. All right, go ahead.
Coffee. Yeah. So David, I was actually, I just had my birthday a couple of days ago, and David just calls me, and he's like, You want to do something? And I was like, you know what? I went into a coffee shop and I bought coffee on my birthday and it sucked. Like, I hated it. And I want to drink good coffee. And we were thinking about going out to a place, and instead he just brings over this coffee machine and he makes me a thing of coffee. And I did want to say, though, it seems like Trent might know some pretty decent coffee. I don't know. He's participated in like the coffee bean sharing thing that they had at HeavyCon.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of coffee is this, David?
It's from Bergies, and it's Ethiopian Yirgacheffe.
You mean Yirgacheffe?
Yirgacheffe.
You mean you are chafing? I'm sorry, dude. Ouch. Yeah, that hurts.
Right
Desitin.
That's what that is in your mug.
It's chafing. All right. No, this stuff from the single origin Ethiopian Yirgacheffe region is awesome stuff, and David here knows how to brew it. So have you found that was all the singing and dancing I had?
That was all the singing and dancing, and thank God I was able to find everything here that I needed while we were discussing the coffee. I am a coffee fan myself. That was quite an interesting little like outtake. I like that. Anyway, first of all, I mispronounced Isaac's name. It's Isaac Shalev.
Okay.
He designed a game called Ravenous River, and this game is also called Saikatsu. Saikatsu is
like SEI.
Yeah, KATSU. Now I believe he said it's going to be available for Gen Con, and it is a beautiful little game. It is you're kind of building like a Japanese garden. And the way you're doing it is by pulling these tiles. You have like these beautiful little, they're almost like, they're not the Bakelite. They're much thinner. I think he said they're basically made out of the same material as dice. And they're engraved on the back with like a Japanese character. And on the front, they have a picture of a bird. And then the bird is kind of surrounded by a wreath of like a particular type of flower. And so it's an extremely simple game. You place a tile onto the board, and you're going to score points for every bird that matches the bird that you just put out, because we all know the bird is the word. Sorry, I had to say it. So you're bird is the word. So you're gonna get points for matching birds. But at the end of the game, what you're gonna do is you're gonna look from your position on the board, and they're kind of color coded, and you're gonna look down the rows of the board from your perspective, and what you're trying to do there is find sets of the same flower. And then that's going to score you points at the end of the game. So you've got part of your scoring coming during the game from similarly placed birds, and then you have the flower scoring at the end. It was real simple, but there were definitely some decisions to make as far as like you going short term, long term. There are like wild tiles which look like these little koi fish that you can put out that will kind of be wild for purposes of scoring. And it was a very quick little game, played in about 25 minutes, and just super, super pleasant. It's for 1 to 4 players, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I was surprised how much I liked it.
It looks really good. Perfect for my wife, probably.
Yeah, like absolutely. And what I mean by I was surprised at how much I liked it, that sounds like an insult actually, but what I meant was
it's a really simple game.
Yeah, I'm not really an abstract guy. And, I usually prefer things that are a little meatier, but this was just really pleasant and really fun and beautiful to look at, really nice production. And so I wanted to give a shout out to him. That's coming from IDW Games, and the designer is Isaac Shalev, and Matt Loomis is the co-designer on this one. So really nice little game. So I recommend people check that one out too.
Yeah, and I think the other games I got on this list, they're like Fuse was a really fast. It was a frantic dice rolling, trying to like roll the right colors and numbers. You're drafting them collectively. I thought it was a really cool, quick, cooperative game. I was quite fine with it. The game was a little bit dark, but I guess it was thematically looked like a bomb. Like a little digital clock readout on a bomb. Like a countdown timer. So that was a neat little game that I quite enjoyed. That Jason actually won sitting in the boardroom.
Yeah, when you won Mall World, which was awesome.
Oh, no, yeah, Mall World actually never made it out. I lost it. I don't know
That's
where
such a
Mall
shame.
World ended up. You know, it was
That's such a shame.
arguably the best game to come out of 2004 at a solid 5.65 rating on BGG. But yeah, I know that was my win. That was my big takeaway from the boardroom.
Exactly.
Sorry, guys. We'll never see the review of Mall World.
Never see the review of Mall World. Oh well,
No.
we were Team Mall World there for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway,
RIP.
well, I want to thank you for agreeing to do this tonight. It was fun. I want to thank Andrew for stopping by, as well as some other people. We saw some other watchers kind of pop in and pop out. Either they joined us for a while and hung out, and we appreciate them stopping by, even though they remained anonymous. Or perhaps they tuned in and said, "My God, what is this?" And then they left. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun doing a live show like this. And thanks to Andrew for stopping by and offering comments. Joe, thanks for your wonderful organizational system where you actually wrote down what we played, whereas me, I'm trying to use my memory, which doesn't really work. And, thanks to, you, your brother, Jason. We all had a great time together. It was a lot of fun. And, it was a great trip for my first Origins experience. So I hope that, you learned a little bit about Origins, listen to this, and learned about some games maybe that might interest you. If you do, think about going over to GameSurplus.com. They are the sponsor of the Longview. They are also a sponsor for coming on board with us. The Low Player Count podcast with Travis over there is now sponsored by Game Surplus as well. So welcome to them. Excited to have them in the Game Surplus family along with Heavy Cardboard. So really looking forward to working and doing some more cross-promotional stuff with them as well. But some of these games that you're hearing about, go over to GameSurplus.com, check them out. They have just a wonderful reputation for the quality of their product. They don't send you stuff that's dinged up. They know what gamers want. They know the condition that people expect things in when they part with their hard-earned money. They package things extremely well. They get things shipped off super fast. You're not waiting for days to get that shipment notification. And, if you're looking for something that's hard to find, they're going to probably either have it in stock already or they're going to be able to find it for you. For example, Lignum, a game we talked about tonight, the original version of Lignum, I got my copy through Game Surplus. So, and I know that he's got a shipment coming in from Capstone. And really looking forward to checking out some of the other Capstone games like Hospital Connect and the Roar Valley expansion, which I believe is in stock right now as well. So go check out GameSurplus.com. So for Joe and myself and for the other friends that weren't able to be here tonight, Will and Jason and Joel and Eric and everybody else and Zach, who is a great guy to get to meet and hang out with.
Absolutely, so many great people. Could I?
Yeah, great
really
people.
Quickly, I just want to thank. I echo everything Jeff said. It was my second Origins. Is the only thing I would change, and I just wanted to give a specific thanks to my brother who helped me celebrate my birthday by being the best gaming wingman you could ever imagine. I mean, like wingmanning me better than Val Kilmer in Top Gun. So it was just awesome, and he got me a birthday present of the Gloomhaven insert, the Gloomhaven Town insert, which I am going to show David here. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah,
those are definitely beautiful and needed for Gloomhaven. Yeah,
Meeple Realty. Yeah, they really they're working more together with the publisher to make sure that it's some really high quality stuff. So, anyway, yeah. Thanks, Jeff. And this was awesome, man. Thanks for agreeing to do this with me. And it was great. I really had a great time at Origin. So hopefully we can make those good times roll again sometime.
Absolutely. And thanks again to you guys for coming. It was a blast. And look forward to trying it again. Maybe we can drag some of the guys like Trent or Andy out there next time. If Andy's not going to HeavyCon or maybe he can do both next year. We'll have to wait and see. So I think Andy said something about he was getting ready to go to bed though. So I was trying to post stuff to him.
He's gonna go put himself to sleep with a Phil Eklund rule book. And I think he said
not
he's going
what
to
he
take a muscle relaxer and read a Phil Effelin rule book, but I think that by muscle relaxer, he just means the Phil Effelin rule book because those things are going to put you out like
Oh my goodness. Well,
it's
for
like reading the
Joe's,
encyclopedia.
well, for Joe Salin and myself, I want to say thanks to everybody out there for watching, for listening. Thank you all, and have a great night.
Yeah, night, everybody.
All right. So I'm going to hit stop broadcast, which might disconnect us. So if it does, I'll call you on the phone.
No, it does not. Just stop
Beautiful.